Hey there, my name is Sjöfors. I know it's a weird name. It makes perfect sense in my native Sweden though. And I can assure you that I've spelt it many times for various people who wonder, how do you spell that, and how do I say that? But anyway, it may be easier to remember me as the Price Whisperer. That's a moniker that I didn't invent in any way. I was called the Price Whisperer because I helped so many companies with their pricing challenges. And today I'm going to talk about international pricing. And there's really three segments, if you like, to this episode. First, I want to talk a little bit about the general situation on when you start selling internationally and how you need to look at pricing. And then I'm going to drill down into two specific cases that doesn't apply to everybody, but could hopefully be worthwhile for you to understand. And the first one then, well, when you start selling internationally, and I hope you do, obviously, because it expands your potential business by a lot, the first thing to realize is that whatever worked in your home country doesn't work internationally, or I should say is very unlikely to work internationally. And that is because when you go international, everything is different. Everything, right? It's not only that you have another currency, which is the easy thing. Obviously, you don't have that in some cases, but it depends on where you are. But the real difference is that when you start selling internationally, willingness to pay in an international market is guaranteed to be different than willingness to pay is in your home market. The reasons people want to buy are completely different. The product features or service features and functions and benefits that work in your home market is unlikely to work, at least unlikely to work as well as you go internationally, because the buying behavior is different. The needs are different. You have a different set of competitors, right? And so the competitive environment is different. The entire decision landscape is different. And unless you take the effort to truly understand what those differences are and apply those in a go-to-market strategy for your international expansion, that is probably going to be quite different than your go-to-market strategy and your pricing strategy as you have in your home market. Customer segmentation is going to be different. Marketing is going to be different. Your sales methodology is going to be different. You may decide that maybe here in your home market you are selling direct to customer, whether it's a B2B customer or a consumer customer, whereas maybe when you go international you decide that you want to use a channel, distributors and resellers, or maybe only resellers, and that puts another whole twist in the plans, because a distributor or a reseller is going to resell your product or services for a very different reason than you when you sell it directly to a B2B or a B2C end user. So it's a very common mistake, and let me just rattle on a couple of different mistakes that I've seen, because I didn't say this in the beginning, but I've sold products and services in about 40 different countries. I've done it directly, and I've done it through distributors and resellers, and I've also done it through a number of joint ventures that I have set up, and it's really hard to describe how difficult it is for a company to adjust to this situation in a new country. But let me give you some example. This company who made fishing lures. I don't know anything about fishing. I remember once as a kid, I did actually caught one fish, and it's the only fish I've ever caught in my life, and it was about this big, But fishing anyway. Fishing lures. This company was successful in their home market, and they decided to go here into the U.S. And what they found was that business didn't take off at all, and there's no surprise, because the differentiator, the main product differentiator, and also that they used the most in their marketing, was completely irrelevant for you as customers here. There was only less than 10% of buyers who were interested in that differentiator, and those had a willingness to pay that was less than half of those who wanted other differentiators, other features and functions. So obviously it was easy to fix. Once you knew that, it was easy to change marketing and push one of the differentiators that led to a much higher willingness to pay. And that was easy done once you knew it. But before you knew it, it was a mystery why it didn't sell. Another example is this this company who is selling. It's a what you might call it. It's a bicycle accessory, and they were selling this all over Europe. And they were successful in some markets, and they were not so successful in other markets. And lo and behold, the reason was very simple. The use case for using this particular accessory was different in different countries. In some countries, people prefer to use this and saw value, a monetized value in that led to a higher willingness to pay when they were using the bicycle for commuting. In other countries, it was using the bicycles to get out in nature that led to the highest willingness to pay. And in further other countries, it was using the bicycle to meet friends and family that drove the highest willingness to pay. So the company simply needed to have different value messages and marketing for the different countries, and suddenly they could see about a 50% increase in sales. So knowledge and data is really all that matters, So anyway, enough about the data, and I think I got it conveyed that you need to understand willingness to pay and how differentiators and use cases and so forth are different in different countries. And if you ever try to go to market in a different country the same way you do it in your home country, it's almost guaranteed to always either completely fail or at least not be very successful. But there was also two use cases I wanted to talk about. Or two use cases, maybe the wrong word, but two special occasions. And one is something called grey import. Well, what does that mean? Well, it means that you sell something in your home market, which is call it a high cost country, a high price country, like any of the Western countries. But then you also sell the same product in a country where willingness to pay is low, Indonesia or Vietnam, or you can think of any old countries that you may sell the same product. And what happened here with grey import is that people in that low price country sees an opportunity to import it back into your high cost countries. And the first time, and this was many years ago, I learned about this was a company who was selling. They were selling some kind of facial cream, and they sold that very successfully here in the US at fairly high prices. And then they also started to sell the same product, exactly the same product, in I think it was Colombia. And suddenly the shipments of this facial cream that they sent to Colombia started to show up on shelves here in the US. Now, this has a particular concern when you sell through distributors and retailers, because they want to obviously guard their margins. And when somebody from outside the country comes in and can compete with them on price, they typically get rather upset. And so this is what this leads to, is a policy decision that you have to make. If this is the case, if you do sell through distributors or resellers, are you going to allow certain grey import? Because as a manufacturer, the more you manufacture, the better it is for you, right? And you may want to allow a certain amount of grey import to keep in the general pricing in your high price country under control. Obviously, you cannot control what prices a reseller sets, but you may want to allow some of that grey import. But at the same time, you then need to understand that you have to have some very difficult and conversations with your resellers and retailers in that high price country, because they don't want to see this grey import. And I've been in that exact situation myself a couple of times, and it's very hard. It's very hard because you want to keep your good reseller in the high, or good distributor in your high price country happy, but at the same time you want to sell in your low price countries, and you want to sell in quantities. So as a manufacturer, it's a balance, but it's also a policy decision. Now, so think about this as you expand internationally, and you probably need to set your policy before the issue comes up. Now, the other thing I want to talk about is selling to global accounts, and we have a same situation. You may sell a product to some kind of outlet in a high price country, and then the same thing in a low price country, and you're selling this to the same buyer, the same company. It may be a global company of some kind, and I mean, you can think any global company. I don't know, Sony maybe, Walmart, any of those. Now, obviously, you're selling at a high price in the high price country because you want to have the margin, and you're selling at a low price in the low price country because willingness to pay is lower. And what happened here, or what could happen, is that one day you get a call from the buyer in the high price country, and they say, "I've just been told that you are selling the same product that we are buying at high prices at much lower prices in this other low price country X, and I want to have the same price." And they're going to insist on having the same price as you're selling at in those low price countries. And they may even say this to make it really dangerous. They say, "And by the way, I want a refund for the last 3 years that we have been overpaying for this product that you were able to sell at a much lower price in a low price country." What are you going to do? Right? Are you going to lose that distributor, that reseller, that channel, that customer by refusing to give them the same price as a low cost country? Are you going to refuse to give them the refund they're asked for? They're going to be lost they're gone forever, and they may, I don't know, but they may represent a large portion of your business. What do you do then? Right? So something really to think of, and what it really means is that you shouldn't sell exactly the same product or very near-lying products in high-cost countries, high-price countries, and low-cost, low-price countries. They need to be substantially different, and I'm meaning substantially. Not just a tweaked version. They need to be completely different. They need to have a different form factor, different feature functions, different benefits, different marketing, and everything needs to be different. So 2 different products, right? Because then you can justify to sell at low price in one country and high price in one country when the product is not the same. They are in fact actually completely different. All right, that was it for me today. I hope you enjoyed this conversation, and that you learned something, and I'm looking forward to see you again soon. Thanks.